We call it people technology.
It's a rare weekday doubleheader in the Indian Premier League, but at an important time for a lot of teams, two of which are Kolkata Knight Riders and the Mumbai Indians, who feature later today. First up, though, is a clash against the Delhi Capitals at Sharjah for the Knight Riders. On Maruti Suzuki presents ESPN Cricket for T20 timeout. We're all set to look forward to this game. And if you look at the IPL points table, it tells you nobody really wants to get to 10 points. You've had opportunities. KKR have had it. Mumbai Indians have had it. Rajasthan Royals have had it, and yet no one wants to get to that 10-point mark. As it turns out, this is a massive game. Kolkata find themselves in a playoff spot at the start of it, but the winner of Mumbai and Punjab, if Kolkata lose, will displace them. So all to play for as match 41 is set to get underway. It's a very good morning to Carlos Brathwaite, getting used to these 5 a.m. starts now in Barbados, and a very good afternoon to Sanjay Manjrekar, who we're still waiting to see perhaps if we get to see a different Sharjah today than the slow one that we've got that will make this even harder watching for Carlos at 5 a.m. Sanjay, what are we expecting from an afternoon game where Eoin Morgan has won the toss and decided he wants to bowl first because he says, I don't know how this pitch will play?
Yes, afternoon games makes a lot of sense to bowl first because you can get your spinners in, and later on, you don't have to worry about the pitch getting, I mean, the outfield getting a bit too dewy and stuff like that. So two spinners in that KKR lineup, I think that's a big factor there. So afternoon games bowling
Hmm.
first with a team that spins strong makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, one element you think is Sharjah in the afternoon games, Carlos, but in that last afternoon game against Chennai Super Kings in Abu Dhabi, Owen Morgan decided to have a bat first. We thought they did well to get to 170, only to lose the game as it turns out. Would that be on his mind as well?
Um, Not necessarily. I
Hmm.
just think that at Sharjah, you're not really sure what you're going to get. But regardless of the pitch, is a difficult ground to defend on. So they're hoping that it's a bit slow and they can restrict Delhi to 130, 140. I see Pant has made a remark that the wicket looks like it will be slow and 150 to 160 will be good. And I think that's the mentality that the batting team should have. Try to get to 150, 160, and if you get a bit extra is a bonus. For Morgan, his plan will be to try to restrict them to 125, 130, 135, so that even if the pitch is slow and not at its best, that they still give themselves enough leeway that they can chase that target. But with a traditionally easier ground to chase, it makes sense to bowl first at Sharjah.
Now, interesting team news from both camps. We knew quite a while back that Team Saudi was handed a KKR debut cap. We were assuming it was for Andre Russell, and that's been confirmed by Owen Morgan at the toss now. There were other options, Carlos. They could have gone Shakib Al Hassan as a spin all rounder. They could have gone Ben Cutting. They've gone for the more, you'd say, bowling option of Team Saudi. Thoughts on that change?
Yeah, it is interesting. They probably are saying they just want that extra bowler in the lineup. They've also made another one, Prasid Krishna out and Sandeep Warrior in. So those are two
Yeah.
out and out bowlers and more the swing variety than really hit the seam or hit the pitch. Cross seam cutters, that sort of thing. They're more new ball bowlers, use the swing. So it probably could be a change, and you could see them go with pace up front and leave the spin for the back end. Sandeep Warrior, well, good friend of mine, and real good skill set. Fantastic fast bowler, swings the ball, doesn't bowl express, but hits good areas, kind of like your good old fashioned test bowler, test areas, look to nick off the first and second slip. So not sure how much swing he'll get in Sharjah, but it will be a good test of his skill set if the ball doesn't swing, and it forces him to be really tight with his line and length and outsmarting the batsman. So it'd be interesting to see how he goes.
Probably an acknowledgement, Sanjay, that they what they miss more from Andre Russell would be 4 overs or 3 or 4 overs with ball than with bat, where some of the batters are coming to form. And very interesting that Prasid Krishna, after that one bad over, finds himself out of the side for Sandeep Warrior.
Yes, there was, I think, one more over earlier, not maybe as big or as expensive, but there was one over earlier in one of the games where you felt like, he's a bit of a concern because the other two fast bowlers have been pretty good. Andre Russell was bowling in the death, But you're right. I think they're going to miss Andre Russell's bowling, especially in the death like they did in the last game as well when they played, when he should have bowled that over that Prasidh Krishna bowled. Also, the fact that those two guys up there, Rahul Tripathi and Venkatesh Iyer, have just made KKR's batting look a lot more, dependable, dangerous. So it's a slight, flirting with risk because they are confident that their batting is fine and they've got two specialist bowlers now in. Prasidh Krishna, I think if it was maybe playoff stages or one of those very important games, they would have perhaps played him. They just want to have a look at this guy before you come into the real business end of the IPL. But clearly, a call made to strengthen their seam bowling. They would have gone with Shaki, but I think they're satisfied with the kind of spin that they have because both Narayan and Varun have looked brilliant. But slight risk when you're going with the success that Tripathi and Venkatesh Iyer have had, which has made this batting look very good. And there's no Andre Russell now.
Yeah, absolutely. Just on Prasidh Krishna, Sanjay, do you think it's fair on him though? Yes, he's gone for 43 against the Mumbai Indians in a game that Kolkata won, then went for over 40 again against the before that. Well, good one to get Virat Kohli RCB. Is it something you would have done? Drop him for a Sandeep Warrior who, would you necessarily call an upgrade?
Just I think trying out options. I think it's not a bad idea because
Okay.
my plan was if Prasidh Krishna is playing, then I would use him a bit like CSK does, Deepak Chahar, and we had suggested with Trent Bolt as well. Get him to bowl most of his overs before 16 overs and not use that one over in the death. And in fact, use somebody like a Sunil Narayan to bowl in the last 4 or 5 because on a pitch like this, he's a difficult bowler to get away. And that's another thing that KKR will perhaps try because it's not easy for guys, the power hitters, to come in and smack Sunil Narayan under pressure for sixes when the pitch is the way it is. You need highly skilled guys to hit sixes of a Varun Chakravarti or a Sunil Narayan. So I would have gone that way. But now with Warrior, maybe they're impressed with the way he's bowling the Yorkers and stuff like that. I don't mind this idea at all. They're just testing waters with Sandeep Warrior.
All right, goes well on them. They don't have to defend a score unlike last time. They're getting a crack to bowl first to a Delhi Capital side that has a change of its own. Forced through injury, Prithvi Shaw is injured, says Rishabh Pant, and Steve Smith comes in. Very interesting as Pant also gives his verdict on the pitch, says it's slow, 150, 160 will be good. That's Rishabh Pant for you. He just gives you what he feels. Now, how would that affect the batting order? Do you think Steve Smith would open? But Carlos, interesting that they've gotten Steven Smith on a wicket, which you think, if Rishabh Pant is right, might be pretty good for him.
Yeah, it's probably a good game for him to come in. We know
Hmm.
what he can do in Test cricket. We know how well he sets up, what a good player he is, and to have someone with that experience, it'd just be interesting to see the dynamic between him and Shika. Shika normally starts a little bit slowly, while Prithvi Shaw goes hammer and tongs, and it gives Shika a chance to catch up. I can't see Steve Smith being that person that gets 50 off 20 balls, and be off to a flyer in the power play, especially for his first game. And I think it'd be unfair for him to act. So just seeing the dynamic between those two, if they do open together, will be interesting. But they've got enough players, and they should find a way to make the partnership work. So it'd be something nice to look at. But I know if either of the two get out of the power play, especially Steve Smith, with how difficult it has been to bat outside of the power play, he'd
Hmm.
add real depth to the quality of stroke play in the middle, because that has been the toughest thing so far for all the teams playing at Sharjah.
Not a bad game for Steve Smith to play, Sanjay.
Uh, yes, first things first. I mean, what's happening with Prithvi Shaw? That is the thing that rises me a little more. He's a young guy, and these are important days for him to, come back into the Indian team and, become the star that we all expect him to be. The injury issue with Prithvi Shaw, I mean, getting injured far too often, missing far too many games, even at the international level. So I just hope that somebody is taking charge of this guy and is fit and playing every game possible, every game on the big platform. So it's a little disappointing that he's not playing, but Steve Smith, perfect ground for him, and especially
Hmm.
with when you have two spinners in the opposition, and Steve Smith is a a super player of spin, even on Indian pitches, and I expect him to open. I think he should be opening with Shikhar Dhawan.
That's the call that we're expecting. But the spin threat of Kolkata, which was so strategically used against CSK, perhaps not eventually to the right result. But they have an opposition now in the capitals that actually play spin well. We've already seen, we've already spoken about Steve Smith and how good he is against the turning ball. Shreyas Iyer, who's had an excellent start coming at the back of an injury into the second leg of the IPL, is very good against Varun Chakravarti. You could see that he's only been dismissed once. There's a strike rate of in excess of 250. It's a small sample size, albeit. He's not bad against Narayan as well. He strikes at 130 and he hasn't been dismissed against Sunil Narayan. There are accomplished IPL players that don't boast of such records. The key would be, Sanjay, how Kolkata use their spin and what batters they go against. Shreyas Iyer loves playing spin, but there were conscious efforts last time to use Narayan and Varun differently in a chase. How do you see them going today?
I expect them to carry on the good work.
Hmm.
The league record that you saw with Varun Chakravarti, maybe a lot of games were played in India on flat pitches. Somehow he, gets his best bowling out in the UAE. And on current form, these two guys are bowling exceptionally well. And on this kind of a pitch where everyone's saying it's going to be a very slow pitch, it will also test Shreyas Iyer. It will test Steve Smith. And I love the way Eoin Morgan has used his two spinners against Mumbai Indians. He had his spinners bowling the first 7 out of the 10 overs because
Hmm.
of Quinton de Kock and Rohit Sharma at the top. And against CSK, it was the other way around and earlier as well. So he's using these two bowlers as his, go-to wicket-taking economical bowlers and bowling as per the vulnerability in the batting opposition. And
Hmm.
Shreyas Iyer may have a good record against Varun, but I'd like to see him today how he goes against Varun Chakrabarti because he's bowling beautiful.
I like that. I actually like the idea of some spinners bowling at the death, Carlos, and Sunil Narayan's one of them, Varun Chakravarti is another. It seems like KKR still don't have those seamers they can rely on at the death. Andre Russell would be a very good option. He's not there. Tim Southee's had his troubles bowling at the death. You've got Sandeep Warrior in now. Lockie Ferguson bowled out sooner than we would have expected. Would you still advocate KKR using at least one of their spinners deep into an innings? Maybe Narayan bowling at the death or Chakravarti bowling an over or so in the 19th or so. Would you go that way?
Yeah, it depends on who's batting. But normally we get down to the 19th, 20th. You have hopefully as a batting unit one of your top five in, and then you're down to the all-rounders, power hitters, and maybe even sometimes the tail. So the prospect of facing Sunil Narayan for a tail ender, a lower order player or a hitter is not always the easiest thing to face. And then you think about if Sunil bowls his four before the 15th over, there's an opportunity then to just watch the last two overs. We did it in CPL. You watch the last two overs, you give him 10 off the last two, set
Hmm.
yourself up for the back end with the pace. If he bowls in the 18th or 19th over, it's a lot more difficult and probably unwise to be giving him 4 or 5 out the over and then waiting for one other over. So it kind of plays with the batsman's psyche as well. Because now you've got one of the best bowlers for the last 6 or so years coming at you, ball turning both ways, not sure which way it's turning. And instead of just being watchful, you need to actually have an attacking mindset and try to
Mm.
power the ball. So it puts players in a little bit of a pickle if to go, how hard to go. The last thing you also want is for someone to come and get three in an over, and then you don't have any players for the last over or last two overs as well. So I think as long as Sunil is comfortable with it, which it shows that he um, is a good option to sometimes have one of his. He's bowled in super overs already and he's done it very well. So I don't see a reason why he shouldn't bowl in the death. And I think it offsets a power hitter's game, knowing that the pitch is spinning and Sunil has one left in the last three.
Hmm. We look at Shreyas Iyer, who's been impressive, Sanjay, and you think the conversation around whether Narayan or whether the spinners bowl is also dependent on who's out there. Owen Morgan's tried different things in different games. Last time, there was criticisms of him bowling Lockie Ferguson's three too early, but you saw there was a plan to bowl to Moeen Ali, someone who was perceived to have a weakness against the shorter ball or the quicker ball. Shreyas Iyer isn't a bad batter to try again with the short ball or with a genuine fast bowler, but he seems to just have one of those bowlers in Andre Russell's absence. Would you again suspect see that? Would you see Lockie Ferguson bowl a lot more because Shreyas Iyer might come in a bit early? Or do you see the spinners bowling a lot more like they did against Mumbai? How do you see things going today?
Shreyas Iyer is a better player of the short ball now. If you
Okay.
remember in Australia, he struggled, and there was um a team talking about, I think it was Australia who said that we're going to attack him with the short ball
Hmm.
because we see a weakness there. And he said, it's a blessing that people are thinking of me, which means, I'm a big threat and all that. So he's got this confidence that, is driving him to be better and better. And I think he's got better against the short ball. So I don't think they should worry too much about against Moeen Ali. It was a better incentive. Have Lockie Ferguson have a crack at Shreyas Iyer because he's a big wicket. But what they can do is have Varun Chakravarti bowl his 4 overs earlier than
Hmm.
Sunil Narayan. If you want one of the spinners to bowl in the net, it's got to be Sunil Narayan. And he actually won KKR the game. And he was very unlucky that Shardul Thakur, played the sweep shot and the ball hit the glove and went for 3 runs because he had got Jadeja out in that final over and he was winning the game for KKR hands down before that stroke of bad luck hit him. So yes, have a crack at
Hmm.
Shreyas Iyer, but keep one Lockie Ferguson over for later because there's no Andre Russell and one Sunil Narayan over as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you think a lot will depend on who's batting when, and something about the Capitals. They've looked good as a batting unit, but two batters that come one after the other, 4 and 5. Rishabh Pant's not quite looking as fluid. Shimron Hetmeyer though seems to be in some pretty fine nick. We just look at the numbers for Hetmeyer, and you look at strike rates this season. Yes, it may be a smallish sample size, but that's all you need. Minimum of 100 runs, and you could have an impact in a couple of games at least. And Hetmeyer striking at 196. That's the highest batting strike rates we've picked. And you think, unlike perhaps Sampati Raidu is an exception, but unlike the others, they're all playing in the power play. Hetmeyer plays more towards the end. And we also look at how he's gone in different phases, and that's the exact point we're trying to make. Strike rate of 196 overall, very good between 16 to 20. Just thinking, Carlos, when you have someone of that form, yes, she's been given that specific role, Shimron Hetmeyer, come in at 5. If, let's say, your top three bat till over 13, 14, now Pant is the scheduled number 4, would you cash in on Hetmeyer? Would you feel like this guy's hitting it better? Let's give him, let's put him out there at a certain situation, even if it means ahead of Pant.
Um, maybe not. It's Rishabh Pant. Um,
That's
it's Rishabh
What
Pant,
if it was
and
someone,
we know
anyone other than Pant? What if it was anyone other than
we
Pant?
know we know what Rishabh Pant could do. Obviously, you'll be tempted in the odd game to
Hmm.
give Hetty more of a go. I really love how he's been playing. Obviously, he has a different role in CPL, bats at number 3 or 4, and is basically the main man with getting big scores for Guyana. But the way he's adjusted to this kind of finisher role, he's a very good player spin as well. So if you are talking about, Sunil Narayan and Chakravarti bowling 2 of the last 4, he would be a good man to have from 16 to 20 to be able to capitalize on his spin, uses his feet well, gets back and cut and pull well, slog sweeps well, and he pulls for 6. He's probably one of the men that picks up length the best that I've seen. Hardly ever gets caught in no man's land. He's either right back or right forward, sometimes even using his feet. So you'd want him at the death. Um, but Rishabh Pant is Rishabh Pant, and he's done it against pace, against spin. And to be fair as well, is the Indian Premier League just before the World Cup. I know these things shouldn't come into play, but
Yeah.
they do. And you want to make sure that your Indian players are in as good form as you can potentially have them in. The last thing you want is that Hetmeyer gets the opportunity for 4 or 5 games ahead of Rishabh Pant and he goes into the World Cup rusty when India trying um, to bring home the bacon. As I said, it's not something that you do hope that your franchise is thinking about. And from there,
Hmm.
um, selections and leaving one of the best players in the world in Steve Smith out, it shows that they're very team centric and team focused. But for some
Hmm.
reason, I do think that those types of things creep into the mind of players and management.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, I wouldn't make Hetty over Pant a regular thing,
Yeah.
but definitely an option the odd game.
All right. Strange sort of season for Rishabh Pant, though, Sanjay. A couple of 50s in the first leg, in fact, in the only 2 games that the Capitals lost. And in the restart, we've seen a run of ball 24 where he wasn't quite, getting it away, though he was trying to play the big shots. unbeaten 35 against Sunrisers, a 14 of 11 before that. Are we noticing anything about Pant, the Delhi Capitals captain and T20 batter at number four?
Not that the peak of form, obviously, with his batting. Wasn't in the last IPL as well. I think we saw the best of Rishabh Pant couple of seasons before that. And recent form also has a huge bearing on how you play, now. And although it was a different format in England, his, performance there wouldn't have given him a lot of confidence. So this is Rishabh Pant, not at the peak of his game, and have aided the bowlers. You've seen anybody who's been slightly off color has been the job has been made even more difficult with the kind of pitches that we've seen. But Rishabh Pant is one of those guys. That's why I'd like him to still come in front of Simron Hetmar. That if he's not playing well, he's not going to hang around and mess up the
Yeah,
game for his side. He's captain,
yeah.
and one of the things which is great about being captain is your batting performance is not under the scanners much.
Is that the case for Owen Morgan as well, though? Sanjay has been of high praise for Morgan, the captain, but Owen Morgan, the batter, in the absence of Andre Russell. Let's dig out his numbers, shall we? And it's been a slight concern ever since he came to this franchise, given the captaincy, and you felt, oh, that means Morgan's going to play every game now. So Morgan, the batter, needs to pull his weight. Strike rate of 103, which is just the second lowest this season. And there are a lot of players that have struggled for form. The Ishan Kishan, David Warner, Steve Smith hardly played a bit more in the first half. But that's where Owen Morgan stands. We've got some more numbers for the KKR and the England white ball captain, and that's the most dismissals in the first 15 balls among top six batters this season. Again, he keeps company of Surya Kumar Yadav, who's been, you could say now, woefully out of form. And he did sort of get stuck there. This is the point you were making, Sanjay, that they think they've got a strong batting lineup because a couple of their batters seem to be firing. But in the absence of Russell, that Morgan becomes even more important as a batter today.
Yes, but also the fact in the last game, DK got some runs and Rana
Yes.
remained not out. So, they must be feeling a little emboldened to make that call. But as I said, it's fraught with risk, and they'll be hoping that Iyer and Tripathi get going. Coming back to Morgan, uh, he hasn't ever been, consistent or, has been uh, a player that has taken everyone's attention with his performance through the season. Eoin Morgan has much better performances at the international level when he's playing for England, but in the IPL, we haven't yet seen the more consistent or the best of Morgan. But if at all there's a case for somebody to be just picked in the auction for his captaincy, because I believe in T20 cricket, captaincy is vital, especially with player selection and when you bowl your bowlers. I think that's where Morgan has head and shoulders above the rest. So I don't mind him. Despite him not getting runs, you can see where KKR is finishing, and it's not just about winning matches. They've just looked a better side, better plan. So yes, he needs the runs, which would be great. But Morgan, the captain and then the batter, is adding great value to KKR.
Have you ever tried to understand that, Carlos? He's such a revered white ball player in international cricket. He plays spin particularly well, took Rashid Khan apart in the World Cup, the 50 over World Cup last year, plays the sweeps and reverse sweeps. So you think this guy is suited for the IPL, a World Cup winning captain, and yet in the IPL, it just doesn't seem to click for Owen Morgan.
It could be different surfaces as well. Obviously, playing spin in England versus playing spin in India or the UAE is different. Um, to be honest, other than that, there's not much difference in the role that he would play. Um, Indians feel as though they first ball to step onto the middle to the very last ball when they get out. Yeah, is he afforded that expression um, in IPL in the past? Who knows? As captain now, it seems as though he's kind of creating that expressive culture around KKR. So it'd be remiss of him to embolden the younger players to go out there and express themselves and him not. But yeah, it's been a curious case because when you think of Owen Morgan, you think of sweeps, reverse sweeps, using the feet, cutting, pulling. It feels like he has all the options to spin. Um, and he's someone that can take the game away from you, albeit not a power hitter, but he can take the game away. I think it was against Afghanistan. We got 13 sixes in the 50
Yes.
over game. Like, that's surreal. So it has been curious cases where it hasn't clicked for him. And one suggestion could potentially be the surfaces being so different from England, Australia, um, South Africa, places where he would have been more successful. But I think at international level, he's got some runs in the UAE as well. So not really sure why in the IPL it
Yeah.
hasn't clicked consistently for him.
Sanjay, on that point,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
wobbling
Just want
that
to
one.
add on. Is absolutely right, Carlos. There are two things that you need to do. Foreign players need to do when they come to India is one, the pitches are different, and that's why you have to always maybe be a little more understanding of foreign players coming here and looking at their performances in that way. Just imagine all the Indian players playing in a New Zealand T20 league in New Zealand or England. They may not be the same players. So you have to be understanding of that fact. There are two things. One is obviously the skill factor. And the other is there's a huge list of foreign players who come to India and play in the IPL and not able to come to terms mentally with the stakes that are there in the IPL. Earlier, it
Hmm.
also used to be the crowd, because there's quite an atmosphere at the ground. And just knowing what the stakes are for a foreign player, and especially somebody like a Chris Morris and stuff like that who gets sold for the price that he did, I'm sure that puts a lot of pressure, which they wouldn't feel that much when playing for their own country. So I remember
Hmm.
Rahul Dravid, you were there perhaps talking about how Cameron
Yes.
White was completely sort of scandalized by the atmosphere, and you could see that it had got to him. So that is
Hmm.
another, barrier that they have to cross. One is adjusting to the conditions, and the other is the IPL pressure.
Hmm. All right, fair enough. It is a pressure
Yeah,
game for the
I
United. Let's go, Carlos, please.
Ronak, sorry. Yeah, I would second that. I remember my first IPL gig would have been after the four sixes, and it was a few days after I had a rapturous reception at the hotel, something that will stay with me very long. But I remember one thing from that season was me coming away thinking I need to handle everything off the field a lot better. With the IPL, it's probably the biggest beast where it comes to ads and video shoots and photo shoots. So much happens around on the field stuff that is easy to get carried away one and distracted to. And there would have been times where I've been in a photo shoot from 9:30, 10 a.m. You have practice at 4 p.m. or the bus leaves at 4 p.m. and you finish in that video shoot at 3:55 and you expect to run upstairs, change clothes, get on the bus, and then have a clear mind after sitting in the shoot for the whole day um, to then go and practice. And there were many days that I was just like, nah, I can't practice now, like not in the right headspace to go out there and
Hmm.
face a Mohamed Shami in the net. So there's so much around it that you need to be able to compartmentalize. When it's off the field, you're doing gigs, you're doing ads, you're doing this, you're doing that. But once you get to practice or to a game, to be able to completely switch off and concentrate at the job at hand.
That's brilliant. Yeah, that's as good
Can I
a
make just
point.
two points
Yes.
quickly?
Sure.
This is the reason why we have you, Carlos, because these are great insights. Something that I'm not privy to. I have no understanding of. We assume that yeah, there may be external pressures, but thanks for being so specific about what kind of pressures there are off the field. And the other thing that I loved is after the four sixes.
Yeah.
The line
Yeah.
that he used after the four sixes, and everyone in the cricketing world knows what he's talking about after the four six.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Wonderful.
We remember the game as much as we remember the name. So let's wrap this up now. Uh, with Carlos Brathwaite and Sanjay Manjrekar. Sandeep Warrior, Carlos's friend, has the ball in hand. Tim Saudi is someone who we're waiting to see. Want to quickly check out what his IPL record is like? It's not great. He's played a lot of the Chinnaswamy, but let's ask Cricinfo and see where Tim Saudi stands in his IPL numbers since he's going to make his KKR debut today. He's played for the Mumbai Indians in the past as well. Didn't quite cement his place in that team either. But we're just looking at it. It's 28 wickets. You think that's all right? But I'm looking at other numbers. Average over 46, economy 8.73. Strike rate is a bit high as well. So it's going to be a daunting task for Tim Saudi. And what's a odd sort of surface? Yes, Sanjay.
I've asked Crick Info about another thing that we were discussing. Eoin Morgan in India for England
Hmm.
T20s. Average of 21, strike rate 127. So much better record when
Hmm.
it's playing for England in India.
All right, brilliant. Keep using Ask Cricinfo for any specific white ball query, T20 query that you have. Thank you very much, Sanjay. Let's pick up this chat at halftime. This is a hugely important game for the Kolkata Knight Riders. They've got the same remaining fixtures as the Mumbai Indians, and you therefore think perhaps who nicks points of the Delhi Capitals could very well be the one to claim fourth spot. Of course, Punjab are still in, Rajasthan are still in it, but if you're one of those who thinks it's between Kolkata and Mumbai for fourth place, this game assumes great importance. Let's see how they go at halftime.
We call it people technology.